event, and I'm going to be talking about my extensive experience in breastfeeding. And it's really going to be just my story rather than kind of my professional opinion on or from like a health perspective of breastfeeding, because we're all here, so we all know the health benefits of breastfeeding. So it's really just going to be me sharing my experiences, because I think there is we're talking about a lot of misconceptions that people have on this call today. And I think one of the misconceptions is that, well, we've spoken about it, Black women have a lot of children, therefore we know everything about breastfeeding, therefore we don't need as much help. And I think my journey kind of does confirm the myth to a degree, but also shows that just because we have those dynamics in place, it doesn't mean that we don't need another level of support. It doesn't mean you just, leave us to it. There's sometimes another level of support that we need. So I am, right, so a bit about me. I'm like the intro said, I'm a homeschooling mother of 6 children and 1 angel boy. I'm a wife to 1, sister to my sisters, best-selling author of 6, speaking nutritionist, life coach, live blood analyst, focused on menstrual, womb and pregnancy health and premature birth prevention and personal development. Now, up until about 3 years ago, I was just a general nutritionist who focused on everyone. And I kind of found my work a little bit unfulfilling. And that was until I made the choice to focus my work on Black women. And I think that a lot of professionals who may be online speaking now at this event, I think we maybe all did it for similar reasons. And I think a lot of us shared the concern that we could see Black women needed a specific level of help that wasn't available for them out there. Sometimes we saw that in ourselves. We needed a particular level of help that wasn't out there for us. And when I started to work with Black women, it just became even more evident that the work that's being done by Breaking Barriers with Breastfeeding is so vitally important, because it could prevent so many other chronic conditions, health conditions, mental and emotional, as well as physical conditions in Black women, Black mothers, who are also one of the top tier of clients that show up and patients that show up in mental health institutions. So that the mental and emotional link between breastfeeding and your continued journey as a mother, I think can't be overemphasized. So today I'm going to be quickly sharing my views on trust, and how that played a big role in my experience as a mother in breastfeeding, my 12 years of breastfeeding and the children that I breastfed, my thoughts now and my advice to mothers and to professionals. Now, I had a healthy fear of the medical community. I saw them as being the group of white doctors. I didn't even consider, and the thing is, my mum's a nurse. My mum's a nurse, so I know that there's Black doctors out there, but when I thought of the medical professionals, I did not think of Black doctors, Black nurses, Black anything apart from janitors and porters. Honestly, my conception was, it's white men who don't like me already. I don't trust them with my body. And they're not going to know what to do with my body either. They're going to either try and drug me or operate on me or completely ignore me. I had a healthy fear of that being the case. Books like Medical Apartheid, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, the story of Henrietta Lacks, as well as so much other information that was coming about how we were disproportionately affected during our during our time being pregnant and breastfeeding, all confirmed my fears. And because of that fear that I had, and because that I had made up my mind, and this was in my early teens, in fact, because my journey into health started with me having a menstrual condition where I was bleeding between my periods for 2 years. Then when I couldn't stand it anymore and finally went to the doctors, they actually ignored me. And I think I would have felt better if they at least bothered to offer me a medication or a drug just so I could say no, but they actually completely ignored me. And that just, again, it confirmed doctors were not to be trusted. And throughout my life as a mother, that fear, which the medical community didn't do much to alleviate, meant that as much as I could advocate for myself, and I had people advocating for me, there were instances where I could have reached out for help and I didn't. And I feel that is one of the, and even with Black professionals, the Black professionals that are out there, please recognize that a lot of us were trained by white methodologies and by white opinions. So we may, even the Black practitioners, we may still hold racially biased opinions of the Black women that are coming in, the Black women that just like you, we may still, through our training, not be able to give them a culturally sensitive experience because of what we've been taught, which again is why it's so important for things like this to happen, so that we can challenge even our own professional opinions and advice. What I did, even though I had that healthy fear, I did have support. I had my sisters, a lot of my sisters were doulas. I worked with Mut, Rachel, who just asked a question a little while ago. Uduak Hudondem was my bestie and doula. Even though it was remotely, she was my doula for a lot of the time. I did a lot of self-study because I was already into natural health as a nutritionist. And I also looked back to the example of our ancestors, and not even just Black ancestors, just culturally, the fact that pregnancy, breastfeeding, looking after a child, being a mother is a natural experience that only needed medical attention in an emergency. And what's happened now is that pregnancy is now become a medical event that it's rare for it to be done naturally. And I was very conscious of all of that going in. So I went into pregnancy. When I got pregnant, I was so confident I'm going to do this all naturally and everything's going to be fine. And then things just didn't go to plan, because my first child actually came when I was 30 weeks of pregnancy. And I've listened to, I think, a lot of the talks, but I'm not sure if anyone's spoken from a very, very premature birth type breastfeeding situation. So my first baby M, was born in 2005. She's 16 now, and she was born at 30 weeks. So I had SROM, premature, spontaneous rupture of the membrane. So I woke up in a pool of blood, basically, about 7.5 months of pregnancy. Now, this was not unwarranted, because I was still smoking while I was pregnant, and I kept it hush hush. I already knew I was doing something that I wasn't meant to be doing, but I knew other people were doing worse. And literally, because I had this healthy fear, I didn't go out and seek, even though I was doing self-study and I had this fear of the doctors, I didn't go and ask for that much advice. I didn't go to antenatal or anything like that. And this shameful addiction to nicotine that I had, I didn't share it with anyone. So I was just kind of hoping for the best. So baby came at 30. I had SROM from 28 weeks. Baby was born at 30 weeks. Now, when she was born, this is where my husband's advocacy, this is why I could really relate to what the sister was saying earlier, Atlantic was saying earlier. We had already planned that I was going to breastfeed and I was going to do all these things, and the placenta, we were going to keep it. And because I had been drugged up so much during the pregnancy, at birth, they were about to take the placenta, and they said to me, do you want to take this? Do you want us to take this for you? I said, yeah, sure. And my husband immediately said no. And when he said that, I was like, I was about to just ruin all my plans, because if I didn't have him there advocating for me, like, there would have been nothing. That's what I would have significantly regretted that. That's why when the sister was talking about advocacy, and we've been talking about advocacy and doulas, you guys play a role that you just can't even imagine how important it is. Because when we look back on our birthing experiences and the things that challenge us and continually traumatize us because they didn't go as well and we're not getting the counseling and stuff, looking back and knowing there was someone there on your side can make your subsequent experiences so much easier. And we do have this tendency of, I had one C-section, the next pregnancy, I'm probably going to have that as well. I couldn't breastfeed the first time, so I'm probably not going to be able to do it again. Unless you have that advocacy or somebody there to support you, it's so important. So she was premature, had her. I expressed a little bit, like half a bottle. I gave it to the nurses, and they encouraged me to go home that night to get some sleep and come back in the morning. And when I gave the bottle to the nurse, she said, okay, this should be okay until the morning. Then we'll just top up with the formula, which all of us have had that experience, it seems like, top up with the formula. And they said it so innocuously, like, oh yeah, it's like a deal, top up with the formula. I was adamant. I said, what time is the breast milk gonna run out? They said, probably about 6. I said, I'm gonna be here at 5. I went home and I pumped like my life depended on it. And I came back with these 2 massive bottles. And they were like, oh, you're doing well. Now I just kept on pumping. I was pumping because I had had a premature birth. I, at that moment, realized, or felt to my, not realized, I felt I had already started my parenting journey wrong. I'd already messed up as a mother. And now I have to do everything I possibly can to make up for bringing this child into the world early. So I just did everything overboard with her. And when she was discharged at, when she was about 8 weeks old, she was discharged. And when they discharged me, they gave me a box full of my breast milk full. I came home with 100 bottles of breast milk because I had been pumping so much. So that actually, and there were lactation specialists who were in the neonatal ward who were really helpful. This Irish woman was so helpful. And one of the things I feel about breastfeeding is that not only can you create that bond, and I found breastfeeding very helpful because again, I felt shattered from going into birth, going into labor early, and all the challenges and the fears and concerns. Is she gonna live? Is she gonna breathe? Is she gonna grow? Because she was like 3 pounds. And breastfeeding was so healing to me. And it helped restore my confidence in myself as a mother. And I think back and think, what about the mothers who didn't have that passion to want to breastfeed, and that didn't have that ability to advocate for themselves, and they lost that opportunity? And again, not judging someone's choice to use formula, but what if someone didn't choose to use formula and they didn't have that advocacy there, or that help and support? They would have missed out on something that could have been very healing for not only them, but for their child as well. Now, shortly after baby M came, our eldest, I then got pregnant again with baby A. He was our son, and he was actually born at 5.5 months of pregnancy. So he came super early, and he lived in the hospital until he was 8 months old. So we had a long journey with him. And again, I was breastfeeding. And again, that really helped me feel like I was doing something. Because when you see a baby hooked up to every type of monitor and alarm and ventilator and NG tubes and NJ tubes and operations for this, that, and the other, breastfeeding for me just felt like this is one thing I can absolutely do. This is a way that I can so very much be part of my baby's life. And when you've got a preemie, it can very much feel like you're almost surplus to a requirement, unless you've got neonatal staff there that encourage you to very much be part of the process, and empower you to do so as well. So he lived until he was 8 months old, and then he passed on. Now, just before he passed on, there was a time when I actually got pregnant again while he was here. And because I was pregnant again, my breast milk slowed down. And I had tandem fed before with baby M and baby A. I had tandem fed. Baby M didn't want to know about breast milk after a little while. So she made a very smooth transition, and I was able to just focus on breastfeeding baby A. But yeah, when I got pregnant again, and then I actually chose to have a termination because I didn't think I'd be able to handle the needs of my preemie baby that was going to be coming home and a new baby as well. So I stopped breastfeeding. And then after the termination, I wanted to start breastfeeding again. So I actually was able to use like herbs and water and massage to restart my breast milk flow. So he was actually still being breastfed even up until he passed on. So, and I'm saying that bit to say, or to encourage mothers, that if I could produce loads of breast milk, having given birth at 30 weeks, and then having another early baby, and then stopping breast milk production, having a termination, then starting again, any mother has the potential to be, I'm not that special. We all have the potential to be able to do that. And again, if it's your choice to do that, I'm not saying everyone has to do it, and no judgment. If you choose to do it, there are ways. And since my journeys with that, I've worked with mothers and been able to help them restart theirs. And mothers have come to me because their breast milk is low, and we've worked together. And a lot of it is just telling them that you can do it because they really want to do it. And there's no one else around them and I'm talking about women who have had access to lactation specialists, but maybe they weren't culturally sensitive enough and just missed their concerns. And I was there very much like, no, we can do it. I understand what you're going through. And that helped so much. Baby S was my first full-time baby. So I thought, oh, finally, I've had a full-time baby. Everything's going to be fine now. But because I had pushed away all help, I pushed away medical help so much that when I was pregnant with baby A, when I was pregnant with baby S, I didn't show up at hospital to let them know I was pregnant until I was past the 23 weeks that I'd gone into labor with baby A, just so that they couldn't tell me anything. I'd lost confidence so much in the medical institution, black, white, Asian, pink, green, I didn't care what color you were, I just lost faith. that I didn't want to see the medical professionals. I was willing to do this all on my own. And I know that if I had engaged and I felt like I was welcome to engage, I probably would have had a better experience. So when baby S came, full-term baby, I didn't think I needed to do anything apart from put the baby near the breast and she'd work it out. So what I was doing was putting her on the breast. When I thought she was finished, I just popped her off, put her in the basket next to me, next to the bed, and then wondered why for 2 weeks this little girl just did not get much sleep, because she would feed and then cry and squirm. And someone said she's got this gripe. She had gripe, or they told me to give her gripe water. And I realized about after 2 weeks that I'd never been taught how to fully like burp a baby. So she just wasn't being burped for 2 whole weeks. And again, that knocked my confidence a bit. And I think because my confidence was knocked, I wasn't producing as much breast milk. And my stress was stressing her out as well, which was making her wind even worse. So again, when I spoke to, I'm sure it was Udawak again, that I spoke to my friend that was a doula, that she just said, okay, sis, is she being burped properly? Maybe she just needs to be burped properly. So I was like, and again, I was just challenging, if this is my natural instinct to breastfeed and I can't even do it, and she's first full-time child and I can't even breastfeed still, or do this work still. And again, so just that, having that sisterly support. So when people have been speaking today about the fact we don't need qualifications and all these kind of things to offer that support, that is so critical. I can so vouch for that. But it's also up to mothers to feel comfortable and receptive to that advice as well. So there is a bit of a two-way street there. Baby A for me was awesome because she sucked her thumb. So even though it was a bit of a challenge to pull the thumb away when she was about 5 years old, it meant that I could breastfeed and she would just go straight on the thumb. It was like from breast to thumb, and then she would go to sleep, and it just made, and she was also my first overterm baby. She actually came at 42 weeks. So that just helped so much. But I must say, I didn't feel like my breast milk production or my experience was any different between having a very premature baby and then an overdue baby either. So again, just to encourage mothers who maybe feel that the time that they had the baby or how premature or overdue may have had an impact, I want to encourage you that there's a lot of women out there like myself who have been able to successfully breastfeed no matter what is happening or what time it happened. Baby K was my boy, and I don't know, I've heard this before, boys love the breast, and it was a challenge to get that little boy to wean off. Now, so we've gone through 5 babies now. It was baby 6 that cracked my nipples. It was baby 6. And because all the pictures that I'd seen of cracked nipples were all white women, when I had a cracked nipple, I didn't even know what it looked like. So I didn't realize I had a cracked nipple. So again, that's another, for me, indication that we need more images of Black women's breasts and anatomy out there so that I could have recognized what I was going through, to know. I just thought I was exhausted from having so many children, because all of this happened in the space of like 10 years or something. So I was either pregnant or breastfeeding pretty much for 10 years at this point. So I just thought my body was completely exhausted, and it probably was exhausted by that time. But yeah, I developed cracked nipples, and that was the only reason I stopped breastfeeding with her, was because of the cracked nipples. So I stopped breastfeeding with her about 14 months. So all of the children were breastfed, apart from my son who passed on at 8 months. All of the children were able to be breastfed for at least 14 months, at least a year and 2 months. Baby N, who was the encore, she was my last child. She was actually also breastfed until about a year and a half. But she actually went the longest. She went the longest to a year and a half, and I wanted to push it to 2 years. But this is another thing I've realized about breastfeeding, is that it was lovely to hear the lady earlier on, the midwife, who breastfed until like 5 years and 3 years. But what I realized, or what I promised myself, is that I want to get my body back at a certain time. And I understand that just because you're breastfeeding, it doesn't mean you don't have your body. But for me, 2 years for me felt like, okay, this is as much time as I want to give. That was a decision I made. That's as much time as I want to give my babies as far as my breastfeeding is concerned. And then I want to take my life back, in inverted commas. And again, this is just personal. This is no judgment, nothing on anyone else. And I was glad that I was able to get close enough to 2 years with my last one eventually, because there were no more babies. It wasn't like I was pregnant again, because that's normally why I would stop breastfeeding, because I got pregnant again. So yeah, that was my 12 years. Now my thoughts now after having 12 years of breastfeeding, and I haven't now breastfed for about 4 years, is that breastfeeding isn't good for business or efficiency. So I fully understand why. I understand, in the same way I understand why teachers can't give a holistic educational experience, and not all judges are going to take the criminal's life into consideration when they give out sentences. I also understand that it's not very efficient to be patient with a mother and help her through the process of learning her body to be able to breastfeed, because you need to clear hospital beds and you've got other mothers to look after. And for the formula companies and for the medical institutions that still have that kind of older information that's used to teach nurses and midwives, where, you know, again, formula is just this innocuous thing that's not going to cause any problems. It also makes a lot of money, and the medical industry is a business, and that's something we do need to kind of, or even if it's not necessarily business, there's money involved. People need to be paid. Hospital beds cost money, and there are, we can't deny that there are still incentives that get given when drugs are prescribed and food supplements are given to patients. So this is where we can't fully rely on the medical industry 100% to be able to take all of our needs into consideration necessarily, which doesn't mean to say that we don't need to get better training to midwives, and that process, that ridiculous process that people need to go to become a lactation specialist that everyone's complained about, that does need to be looked into. But this is just a situation that I think we just need to, you know, be aware of. I also wanted to mention empowerment. And again, that's because of how much I feel breastfeeding helped empower me as a mother at a time when a lot of other things made me feel disempowered. And I don't think, I really feel it's a process that if a mother chooses to, she should be supported through as much as possible. And we all know the mental and emotional and physical health benefits of breastfeeding. The breast is best, say, you know, I think is very commonplace, and we all understand why that is the case. But again, looking back at it, I also think that actions speak a lot louder than reports. So just like Kimberly was saying, I think if I saw more action being taken from the people who said that they were meant to be looking after me, as opposed to, yeah, well, I've studied this and I've read this report and I've written this report or been part of writing this report, I would have felt more comfortable to have asked for the help that I probably needed, whether it was the prematurity or the breastfeeding or the breast nipples cracking or the winding of my baby and all of those kind of things. It would have helped so much. I also realized this is a very important space, this space that we're having right now with Zoom, where there's multicultural professionals here listening and participating and actively having those difficult conversations. And Black women are so important being part of these conversations, because if this conversation didn't have Black speakers, it wouldn't be worth, no offense, but it wouldn't be worth a damn, I'm sorry. My advice now, though, to mothers, and again, I'm not going to spend long on this because this has already been said, but I would recommend, I highly suggest, not only do you ask for help, but you affirm help. So like the sister was saying earlier about affirmations and using those affirmations, I think we can talk ourselves out of being worthy of help. We can say, oh, it's not that important, or I'm sure they'll get round to me, or I'll just have to do the best that I can, I'll just have to struggle through it. Like I think it was one of the ladies was saying one-to-one doula, I think she was saying, Ruth, that's it. I think she was saying, you know, we're encouraged even by our elders, just struggle through the pain. Now we need to affirm that I'm going to get the support that I need. I'm going to find the support that I need. I'm going to find support from people who make me feel comfortable. And the more we affirm that, where focus goes, energy flows. If we're focusing on our previous negative experiences or the struggles we had with breastfeeding or the fact that the help and support is not out there, then we're going to just create that reality it's more likely we're going to be able to create that reality for ourselves. But if we affirm that we're going to find that help and we are worthy of that help and our decisions matter, and no matter who tries to talk us out of breastfeeding, if this is a decision we've made, we are going to do it and we are going to stick to it. Part of that process starts with, I'm affirming this for myself. I would also definitely recommend, you know, encourage mums to trust their own body. Again, this goes through the whole spectrum of the medical field. When you know that there's something wrong, your breasts feeling gorged, they feel bumpy, baby doesn't feel like she's feeding, you feel pain, you feel discomfort, you feel lightheaded, Because some of these things that women are experiencing are life-threatening, but they're not even being acknowledged, which is why we've got the big cases, the people that everybody knows about, like Serena Williams and Beyonce, who are still suffering. So it doesn't even matter your social class. We know that Black women are being affected. And again, this is something we've spoken about a lot, so I won't go into it again, but sisters, trust your body. You know when there's something wrong, and advocate to get the help for that, and have an advocate there for you as well. Have people there, create some kind of a support system, paid or free, that can be there to advocate for you. Like the sisters have spoken about, like I found with my husband as well. I also recommend that whether this is before you have a baby, during pregnancy, or after, get counseling, therapy, and coaching, because I work with a lot of women who their breastfeeding experience was so challenging, their pregnancy was so challenging, that it's affecting the decisions they're making for future babies that they're not even pregnant with yet. So definitely allowing yourself to get the help and support that you need to work through the challenges that you've had. And even if you're currently breastfeeding and you're having challenges right now, you can still aim to get some support or therapy or those kind of things right now from someone you feel is supportive, so that it doesn't become even more of a problem. For professionals, not necessarily, again, and not just white professionals either, but for all professionals who are working with white mothers, ask how you can help, as opposed to just assuming you know what's wrong with someone because of the visual examinations, because we've explained clearly that no matter how much years of practice you've had, or how many women you've worked with, you may not know what the problem is. So sometimes you need to also ask, how can I help you? You tell me what's wrong, and then trust the person who you're helping. Because if someone's telling you that they're in pain and there's discomfort and their breast is doing this, that, and the other, you also need to trust that and add that to the information you use before you make your decision of how you're going to treat this person. Be anti-racist. And again, not at, the requirement of our time being telling you how to be anti-racist, because like Kimberly said, the information is out there. It's just about making the decision to do that. Address your current biases. And again, this is Black professionals as well as white professionals. Address because I know that there are older Black nurses who don't think that kindly about the younger teenage girls that come in. That is a bias, and that's an intercultural bias. I still know the conversation about African mothers versus Caribbean. I know that still exists. And it's going to color, it's going to affect how you support that mother and all of her decisions. Be willing to train and study and even shadow another professional and listen and learn, so that you can support the needs of Black women and women generally who are breastfeeding as much as possible, and acknowledge the potential of hardening. Acknowledge that just like a judge who's seen 101 young teenage boys come in, that the one that's in front of you now may not be the same as everybody else, may not be the same as all the images and the case studies that you've seen, and this one might not fit the immediate diagnosis that you're about to give. And that's when you go back, how can I help you? Am I looking at this person in a biased way? How have I possibly been hardened? And I know that a lot of people, when they go back into this level of training, like the cultural sensitivity training that Ruth was talking about, part of it, some people don't complete it because they get to the point where there's too much self-reflection that they have to do, and it brings up too much trauma about how much damage they could have potentially caused mothers and whose breastfeeding journeys that they could have interrupted, and that stops them from going any further. But trust me, you push past that and you have the opportunity to create so much good in the lives of so many mothers who you could be helping moving forward. So yeah, that's me. That's my experiences with breastfeeding. You can find out more about the work that I do at naturallyoucoach.com. And thank you again so much for inviting me here and listening. And I really look forward to being part of this space and participating in any way that I can moving forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leah. That was wonderful, 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 and just touched on so many points that needed to be raised, and you got through so much material. Again, it's a talk to go and digest again. I was writing lots of notes with the place that you speak of, empowerment for professionals, the sisters to take on, so much there. And this space is vital, and I'm so thankful that you came and joined us and shared from all of your wisdom and your experiences, you know, all of them. And yeah, I'm very thankful. I can just see the chat box binging. Thank you. Look forward to replaying. Thank you for sharing your story.